And look at these knights. These knights on e4 and f3 really paved the way. So these knights won me the game. The game against Wesley So from the Singfield Cup in 2015. So the game starts d4, knight f6, c4, and now I play pawn to e6 here. Wesley plays knight c3, bishop g7, e4, d6. Now, one thing that can be said about Wesley is that he takes up the gauntlet. When you play something very aggressive, he will respond in kind. So knight f3 castles, bishop e2, e5, castles, and now knight to c6 played here. d5, knight e7, knight e1, knight d7. All pretty standard so far. All pretty standard stuff we've seen many times before. So f3 is played here. So f5, bishop e3, f4, bishop f2, g5, knight d3, knight g6, c5, knight f6, rook c1 played here. Rook f7, king h1, pawn to h5. All pretty standard so far. This has been played many times. This is the Mar del Plata variation of the King's Indian defense. White tries to basically break through very quickly on the queen side and attack immediately. Black basically gambles all in on a king side attack here with g4 and g3. So h5, c takes, knight b5. Very surprising move, because normally what happens in the King's Indian when white plays the Mar del Plata is white tries to play the position with a move like queen c2. So after a move like g4, you can play knight to b5. And the reason that that you want to put the queen on c2 and the rook on c1 is so that if black tries to kick the knight back with pawn to a6 here, white can go knight to c7. The queen and the rook guard the knight. Black only has the queen and rook attacking it. And after knight d7, rook b8, there are many ways that white can play here where white's much better. But the general point that matters is that white can play knight to e6 and close this diagonal for the bishop. And if you take after pawn takes, this pawn becomes a real thorn in black's side here. It's very hard to attack as well, because thematically, let's just say you go g3, takes, you'll notice there's no way to really create checkmating possibilities here. And additionally, let's say white goes bishop g1, knight h7, just like this, and queen h4. Again, it's very hard to attack towards h2. So that's why normally you want to line up two pieces on the c file before you go knight b5 here. But instead, Wesley plays knight b5. So now I play pawn to a6. Wesley goes knight to a3. Again, you don't have knight c7 because now the rook and the queen guard it, and you only have the lone rook. You don't have the queen and the rook lined up so that the move is playable. So knight a3, b5. Again, a very logical move by me. The reason behind b5, white wants to put the knight maybe on c4 and b6 and create a fork. Additionally, putting pressure from c4 on d6 and e5 as well. So that's why I play b5, box the knight out, no jumps anymore. And now the knight will have to reroute like knight c2, b4, c6, but that's going to take a lot of time. So now rook c6 is played here by Wesley. I go g4, going all in for the big attack. Queen to c2 is played here. Play queen to f8. Now again, I don't remember why I played queen f8. I think g3 is also a move, but probably I did it because I figured, well, if Wesley tries to do the legendary triple stack or the Ali Ekins gun on the c file, I can play bishop to d7 to hit the rook on c6, and white doesn't really threaten anything. You can go maybe rook c7, but now again I have h4 ideas. A lot of stress on the white position here, or even g3 is playable too. So not sure why I played queen f8 specifically, but I did. So rook c1, bishop d7. Wesley goes rook c7. I play bishop to h6 here. Wesley plays bishop to e1. Again, the idea here is that after bishop to e1, he wants to avoid some nastiness. Like say you play knight b1, g3. If you take, I take, I'm attacking the rook on c1. So Wesley decides I'm not going to allow that. I'm going to go bishop e1. So now if I go g3, there's no threat on the bishop, and white can maybe reroute the bishop to b4 as well to attack the base of the connect 4. So instead I play a very nice move, pawn to h4. And this is the starting position from the game that I played against Bartosz. Now Bartosz plays h4 correctly in the game like I did in my own game. Pawn takes, pawn is played, and this is where Bartosz in our game went very wrong. He now played the move bishop takes g4. Mind you, it's still probably okay for black, but as you can see from the bar, it's becoming significantly less. So that's why the correct move here is to play this move pawn to f3. And now after g takes f3, it's important. So if you take with the bishop, now I trade, and after a move like, knight c1's better, just like bishop g4, black is up a clean exchange here, and white is in really bad shape. So Wesley plays pawn takes pawn, because now if I take the rook on c1, After queen takes c1, white has a bishop and 2 pawns for the rook, and additionally he's got a really solid chain of pawns here because he's got a pawn on f3, which really connects and supports everything else. So that's why I don't do that. Instead, I find the correct move here, which is knight takes e4. A very beautiful move by me, and the only move after which black is probably winning. Here Wesley plays rook d1, which is not the best move. Again, with computers, it's always easier to see what the best possibilities are. But he should have played rook takes bishop on d7. Instead, he goes rook to d1. And so now I play rook takes f3, a very strong attacking move. Rook takes d7. Again, white can maybe take on f3, but after takes queen f3, there's a double check. If you go king g1, bishop e3, knight to f2, and now after knight to f4, look at these knights on f4 and e3 just crashing through. Huge threats here, and this nice little gift box on f4, f3, e3, f4, e4, e3, and f3 just is too much. There's just checkmates, all kinds of bad things happening to the white king. So instead, Wesley plays rook takes d7. Actually, I guess I didn't finish the finish line. So if takes queen g2, another possibility. Black can play a very important move, which is bishop takes g4 here, with the idea of trying to win the rook on d1. Additionally, trades would be losing. And if you move the rook to, I don't know, like b1, for example, there are many ways to win. I think queen d3 is winning. Queen f5 probably also is winning. But the white king is just completely under assault here. So that's why Wesley plays rook takes bishop. And now I find the forced checkmate, which is rook f1, king g2, and now a very, very important move that wins, which is bishop to e3. Now, the reason this move is so important is because there probably are other ways to win, like h3 might be winning. Apparently, the computer says takes and rook f2 wins. I mean, big boo-hoo-hoo, but very hard for a human to play. But the reason this is important is because now I threaten checkmate in 2. Let's just say white plays a random move like, I don't know, like knight takes e5. You very simply have rook to g1. King can't come this way because, again, all the squares are guarded by the queen. King can't take because the bishop guards the rook. King h3, now you have the very nice move, knight to g5. Forced checkmate, rook controls these 2 squares, and the knight on g6 holds the h4 pawn very importantly. So that's why after bishop e3, Wesley plays bishop g3. Again, rook g1's not a move because white can just take with the rook. So here it takes and white wins the game. So now I find another important move here, which is that I play pawn takes bishop. So I actually gambit this rook on f1, but in return I create an important square for this knight on g6. As you're looking at the knight, it's like you can't really go here because white will take it, so how do you bring the knight into the game? So now I take the bishop here. Wesley plays rook takes rook, and now I play knight to h4. White can't take the pawn on g3 with the king because the knight guards it. Additionally, you can't go back because then g2 is also checkmate, with the knight on h4 guarding g2 and the king stuck in the corner of the board. So here Wesley plays king to h3, and now here I play another move that oddly enough is the best move, which is queen to h6. And the reason that this more or less ends the game is that white is just basically getting checkmated. I have many fossils here. I have 3 possible fossils. Knight on e4 also guards g3, and you don't really have anything you can do to prevent it. So Wesley plays g5 here, basically saying that, you know what, if you take with the knight, my king is going to come to g4, and you have no way to continue your attack. Also, if I take with the bishop here, for example, this maybe is still winning, but after takes, you still have to do some work here to win the game. So I play knight takes pawn. Wesley goes king g4. Again, not king takes g3, because after king g3, I have a forced checkmate here with knight to f5 check. And now if white takes with the rook, there's queen h3, bishop holds the squares, knight holds the queen, and it's just GG. And if white goes king g2, I go queen h3, king h1, and boom, knight g3 checkmate. Pawn is pinned to the king, queen holds g2, bishop holds g1. And if white goes king g4, the last really attempt here, black can now play queen to h3, which is also just checkmate. Bishop guards the knight, knight guards the queen guards the knight, king is stuck on g4. So therefore, Wesley plays king g4, and now I play knight hf3. Again, threatening the same idea with queen h3 checkmate, because the knight holds the queen. And Wesley tries knight f2. I think it's already a forced checkmate no matter what. I have these 2 checks with these 2 knights and this queen. So Wesley goes knight to f2, play queen to h4, king to f5, rook to f8 check, king to g6. And now I find another very beautiful checkmating pattern with this beautiful move, rook to f6. So now Wesley takes, play knight e4, and Wesley very sportingly allows the checkmate to happen on the board by going king to g6, and now I play queen g5. Checkmate, king has no squares here, and the knight holds the queen. And additionally, white can maybe survive one more move with, well, king e6 allows queen f6, which is checkmate. And if king f5, then black goes queen to f4. And if you go g6, I go back to g5. And if you go to e6, I go queen f6. Checkmate. And look at these knights. These knights on e4 and f3 really paved the way for me to create the checkmate. Many different moves. It starts all the way back at f3. Like, first there's a knight capture here. Then there's a knight h4 check. Then there's a knight g5. And then I use this other knight jumping to f3. So these knights won me the game.